Chapter 107. Thank you for subscribing and joining us on our storytelling journey. Even as I burnt out Zeus's innards with my spiritual power, Zeus's power filled the area and I grimaced as I felt my realm cracking under the pressure of his power as he seemingly decided that taking my realm was more trouble than it was worth at this point. That is more than enough, mortal. You did well, but I am done playing with you. His power seemed to convey to me telepathically as his unleashed power that began breaking down my realm allowed him to grab my hands that were buried inside his mouth and with crunching noises break my wrists. Still, I was well used to such pain, so I just began kneeling him in the chest, but he ignored the blows as he flew up into the air, and with a tearing noise he ripped my arms off at the elbows of each arm. The pain was transient, and in my evolved form of having consumed the god-killer sword, I merely had to watch for a couple of seconds as my golden arms regrow themselves. I am going to devour you and your realm. That's a statement of fact. Zeus said, no longer sneering down at me and instead almost looking at me with respect. You fought well, Jake Barris, I respect you for that. Now just relax and let me devour you so I don't hurt your realm anymore. So one day you may reincarnate somewhere in my mega realm in the future after I assimilate the earth in time. Zeus said, and before I could react his red cosmic lightning-covered fist was shoved through my chest, and this time I could feel how his overwhelming lightning was conceptually burning away my regenerating flesh. I didn't snarl or cry out a shonen cry of motivation or anything. I just stabbed my finger blades into Zeus's eyes, making him hiss, as even with his greater power and durability, the god-killer sword was still a threat to him, and a person's eyes was always the most fragile part of anyone's body. You still talk too much. A voice spoke out softly, and both me and Zeus paused our fight to look aside, and not even a couple meters away from us was Hera pulling off Hades's helm of darkness that allowed her to approach invisibly. Zeus went to say something, but his face went white and he vomited blood, with his chest expanding and contorting as he screamed between puking out blood, bile, and even skeletal remains of people. You always did feast before a great battle to show your wealth and confidence, to already celebrate your assured win. But forcing Mother Rhea and others to bed this time was a terrible mistake. Enjoy the fruits of Rhea's efforts, the improved potion that made dear Father Cronus vomit us up and lose the majority of his power. Then Hera even threw a massive gold-glowing net and bound the net that fell upon Zeus with what looked to be Hestia's lasso. But Briareus and his 100 hands are not here to untie you this time after you killed him for sleeping with a dryad you fancied. Hera smiled sadly as she looked over Zeus's undulating form that twisted in agony as his own divine power was turned on itself, and I could feel his connection with Olympus breaking apart as that whole realm broke apart. The potion's only weakness was how you needed to be at your full power, as it would slowly drain you of power, strengthening itself and merging into your entire divine being so you wouldn't realize its effect. Well, that and how the poisoning would also inevitably poison the entire realm of Olympus due to it acting as an anchor for your power and immortality, Hera monologued coldly before smiling more naturally as she looked at me. He was right, Jake, you did phenomenally. No one else other than other prime world beings could have driven Zeus to this level of power and thus trigger the potion into doing what I wanted. Hera said proudly, and I took a breath as monsters and gods alike began twisting in agony as their entire pantheon was poisoned by the power of Zeus's cursed/poisoned soul that like a drowning man sought to drag everyone beneath him so he could get another breath of fresh air. This was your plan, I said with a tired neutral face, as I had honestly begun to accept my loss to Zeus, as he was countless thousands of years older than me and truly more powerful than I was. But this sight reminded me of what she said before. She wanted to completely wipe the Greek pantheon off the board. Hera, you traitor! Athena screeched, and I looked over and saw the goddess with long blonde hair and owl wings breaking off the fight with Medusa Gorgon and her sisters, who had come off worse in the fight. Then the goddess of wisdom was trying to fly over, but it was obvious that with her connection as Zeus's right hand, she was suffering more than the rest from Zeus's frantic reaching for uncorrupted power to fight off the effects of the potion. The bitch born of my husband taking another lover, eating her, and then exploding out his head, thinking she had all the intelligence in the world. It is quite terrible when things don't go to plan, doesn't it? Hera said smugly, and then she kicked Zeus in the balls, making him screech. In that moment all monsters and gods flinched as their connection with Zeus went crazy, and in that picture-perfect moment a massive clawed hand reached outwards, and with a loud crunching noise Medusa Gorgon threw Athena into her mouth and bit down. Hera then turned to me, taking a deep breath as though a weight was off her shoulders, and I realized how she didn't have nearly as much power as she should have had. She had literally less than 1/100th of the power she had when I last saw her. You have severed your connection with the Greek pantheon, haven't you? I asked as I fell out of my awakened form with my arms turning more flesh-toned, and I realized with my metal arms I must have looked a bit like Azura from Azura's Wrath. But at my question, Hera simply nodded tiredly as she looked at the grossly mutating form of her husband, who didn't die a noble death in the pitch of battle, but a terrible poison that robbed him of his power and literally poisoned his realm due to his potent connection to it, which brought his actual downfall to him. I walked over to Zeus, and even as he bled purple toxic blood and tears from his eyes, his vision was clear as he met my eyes, and we shared a look between the two of us. Even as I pushed God's Slayer through his heart and into the ground with the sword inside him breaking off into whirling threads that began methodically blending through the god's body, tearing through bone, organs, and all our eyes, my royal purple, and his sky blue maintained contact. Then the once great god king of Olympus, no longer able to regenerate, only duly stared into my eyes as I patiently watched Zeus the god of lightning die and break apart into flakes of ashes.